But as a postpartum doula, my real big focus is maternal care. And I really say it's maternal focused because it's a ripple effect. It affects our partners, it affects our babies, it affects our family members. So we think of it like, dropping like maybe a stone in the water and just ripples out. And so it affects everyone. But the main point is caring for mamas. That main space is caring for mamas.
This is Raising Mama, a hilariously honest podcast dedicated to unveiling the hidden realities of motherhood.
Our goal is to arm you with the information and tools you need to be your most confident and empowered self.
This podcast is packed with unfiltered testimonies, diverse perspectives, and expert opinions, along with a good dose of laughter and tears.
Leading you on this journey is my best friend, Megan Stander, who is a CEO, passionate maternal health advocate, and mom of 2 daughters.
Alongside me is my best friend, Chelsea Ledson, who is a mother, wife, and registered nurse with her master's specializing in women's health. Let's try to raise the next generation
by raising up mamas
and maybe raising a little hell.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, mamas.
Welcome back to Raising Mama.
Today on our show, we have Megan Limon, who is a DONA-certified postpartum doula and a UCSD-trained lactation counselor. You might have seen her on Instagram. You can follow her at meganlimondoula.com. She's got a beautiful aesthetic account there that's all about taking care of mama postpartum with a focus on nutrition and belly binding and all kinds of cool holistic stuff. And a little bit of background on her. She has a dedication spanning over a decade. She's been at the forefront of redefining maternal support through a modern lens that includes holistic meal preparation, body work, and belly binding. Her practice, established in 2013, focuses on an organic approach to maternal care, promoting healing, empowerment, and support. And she works in San Diego County and its surrounding areas. She really believes that a mother's healing journey matters deeply. And on her website, you can find her comprehensive postpartum guide, and on Instagram, her engaging social media presence, where she shares her expertise in nurturing new mamas towards a healing and nourishing postpartum experience. You can visit her website at meganlimondoula.com, which is meganlimondoula.com, and her Instagram is also just at meganlimondoula. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
We're excited too. I was telling Chelsea that I found you on Instagram, actually. I loved your content because it's just like so cozy. Like, just feel like everything about your account is like so warm and cozy. And I feel like that's what you need postpartum. And I think that
making me want to have another baby just so I can have that warm, cozy. I'm like, is this what I need to do to feel this vibe? Because this is the vibe I want in my life, is like all the coziness of your page. It's really awesome.
Oh,
I know.
Thank you so much.
We want to talk about a range of things related to what you do and what you're good at. But we thought talking about the first 48 hours specifically after birth would be an interesting topic because, for one, it's so, like when you're pregnant, I feel like your brain is very much focused on birth, right? Because that's the next step. Your belly's getting bigger and bigger. And of course, you're like, oh gosh, like the baby's got to come out. So, you're thinking about birth a lot. But do we think about the first 48 hours after birth enough and what comes after? Because once the baby's out, and postpartum begins. So that's what we're so excited to learn from you about, because you said you kind of specialize in that, right?
Absolutely. I have found over the years, my practice definitely didn't start out this strong in the 48-hour realm. Just learning over the years what it really supports mamas the most. But I have found that, yes, that initial support after birth can be really pivotal. I say it can be because I never want to make mamas feel like, oh, I didn't have that 40 hours of care and, my whole postpartum's wrecked. And absolutely not. Like, you can still heal even if it was 5 months later. Like, you can still do healing work. So I just want to reassure. But that first couple days after birth can absolutely just set the tone. It's like with anything, when we really set the intention and our bodies do better, our minds do better. So yes, I've found that first 48 hours has been such a pivotal time in focusing on nourishment, on cocooning. They're really like the valuable um, realms of my practice is cocooning, healing elements, and then nourishing meals. And we can dive into that more in depth, but yes, the 48 hours is, I feel like, is very valuable.
Oh my God. I am so pumped for you to break this down for me because I'm thinking about having a second kid and I know what I did the first time I had a kid. And I'm like, oh my God, give me the how-to book today in this episode of how to just do like the best 48 hours from someone like you who I think you've done this how many times with how many women's like first 48 hours? Like, I think that's such a cool thing. Like in my lifetime, I'll get to do it once or twice, but you can do it like, I don't know. You really know what you're talking about. So I'm super excited.
Before we get into the nitty gritty of it, I think that not everyone, knows like the difference between a doula and a midwife. And there's some aspects of doula support that, while it's invaluable, it can be a little bit misunderstood. So can you demystify a little bit what a doula does? I guess particularly in your case, a postpartum doula within like the crucial first days after childbirth.
Absolutely. So a doula in general is just like that extra set of hands, that support system. But as a postpartum doula, my real big focus is maternal care. And I really say it's maternal focus because it's a ripple effect. It affects our partners, it affects our babies, it affects our family members. So we think of it like, dropping like maybe a stone in the water and just ripples out. And so it affects everyone. But the main point is caring for mamas. That main space is caring for mamas. So what I do as a doula is a little bit of everything. I definitely, my practice is a little bit unique in that it's very mama focused, meaning the nourishing foods, the body work, the belly binding. Those elements to me are big pieces, but every doula is different in what they bring and their gifts. But I like to kind of separate it into different categories of like most doulas will do a little bit of house care, so a little bit of light laundry dishes. Most doulas will do just checking in with mama, checking in with lactation care, feeding care in general, how to use your pump if you're pumping, how to feed your baby in XYZ, all these different ways, positioning, all of that. And then, so that was environment care, mama care, body work, and that can encompass belly binding, all of the things. And we can chat about that later. And then the nourishing meals. Some doulas will offer some type of meal support, even if it's just a quick meal prep. And then in general, it's like that overall education. So as a doula, you come in and you're sharing if families open to different tips and tricks. You're really just going with the family's flow, but sharing that education piece. With some families, that's very valuable. Some families, they have had so much experience with their little ones. Now they're looking for more of the hands-on support. So, you flow with what different families need. But from my practice, again, maternal care is the focus. Maybe I'll do laundry. Maybe I'll do dishes. Absolutely. Those things are always in the back of my mind. But what's most important is making sure my client is belly binded. She's resting, or the birthing parents resting, they're having the foods that they need, they are having the rest they need, and then the other things will obviously get done when they need to get done.
Right. So like it sounds like you don't want postpartum care to be confused with your house is clean and stuff is done. Like it's like, we first need to take care of mama and then we can think about these other things that are also important, but they shouldn't be misconstrued as like self-care.
Totally. Absolutely. And I feel like I do workshops on the side of this work that I do with doulas, and I'm teaching doulas how to incorporate maternal care, this really deep maternal care practice in their practice. And the biggest thing, as I share, is we're not housekeepers, we're not maids, but absolutely, if that helps her rest, just to do a little bit of laundry, I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to do it really excellent so that there's no thoughts, like, oh, was it folded right, or was it the right detergent? I'm going to do it. But for me, like, I think it's important to educate my clients prenatally about this kind of care and what the benefits are. And the benefits overpower having like the perfect, the dishes and loaded in the dishwasher. Of course, they're going to get done, but this is the focus first.
That makes a lot of sense. So just so our listeners can kind of get in the mindset of why this could be important. So like, how would you describe what the first 48 hours are like? Because you've experienced it many times.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, it's so different for every single person and their birthing journey and what took place and how they're healing. But in general, I mean, our nervous systems, our bodies are in a state of shock in a sense. They're a state of deficiency. So our placenta is, delivered, and that is all the wonderful nutrients and goodies from our body. And then now our body is in a state of like it needs that support, it needs that nourishment. So we're bleeding, we're lactating, so much is going on. We're trying to get our balance and reground, and there's this tiny little human, and now we're tired on top of all of that and exhausted. So there's so many things that take place that we really need. We go into postpartum deficient, and we really need that support. As opposed to pregnancy, a lot of mamas say that they feel, despite the nausea, if they have nausea, is that they feel pretty strong and they feel pretty, their body feels pretty solid. And then to go into postpartum and be almost the opposite, where your body, now you're like, I need things, but then you're so tired, you're like, how am I going to get these things? So that 48 hours is really important to just really getting these specific healing elements in so the body can do its thing, because regardless, our bodies are going to heal. So I always say that again, so that mamas don't feel like they have to do like check all the boxes and have to like make sure everything's perfect to heal. Our bodies are going to heal, but there's ways to helping it heal in a very organic, calm way, a way that can like honor our body's timeline, so we're not rushing it.
Megan, this is my big question. So, one, you sound like just like the fairy godmother who just like comes in and it's like makes sense so much better. But since you've done this so many times, what do you think is like the top thing that maybe moms are most surprised by? Are there like reoccurring themes where you can see like, ooh, they weren't expecting this? Or is it different for each case? I'm just so curious. What do you think if moms could like do it over, that they're like, oh, this is what I'd actually prepare for this time?
I hear a lot, and I work with a lot of families, second, third, fourth babies, and I worked with them with their first. So I love to do check-ins and prenatals and chat. Well, I'll do check-ins for the first year after I work with them, and then if they're giving birth in following year or pregnant the following year, we'll do a prenatal. And so I get to hear quite a bit of like conversations through those 2+ years.
Yeah, you get the whole
of like,
timeline.
yes, and I love that. I love hearing that. But I hear a lot from mamas that the second time, third time, they're looking for that support in the realm of like exhaustion and being overwhelmed. So a lot of second time mamas were like, that first time I was so overwhelmed. Like I just didn't even know where to start. And when you blend the exhaustion in with the overwhelm, it's like it can be a true mess. It's like, where do I start? What do I do? But I'm so tired. And I will say some mamas don't experience the exhaustion at first. Some of my clients say they have so much energy. It's wild where it's a nervous energy. So when I say like energy, it's like, I have to be doing this. I have to stay up and watch my baby, blah, blah. And then it fizzles out around 3 weeks for the most part. And then they go into that super exhaustion. And there's a lot of reasons for that. That adrenaline kind of wears off. But really preparing my clients for that exhaustion overwhelm is really important for me. And chatting, that's why I really go in depth about the 48 hours, the first 6 weeks, and being really honest with families at prenatals, where it's almost a little bit exhausting just sharing so much. But I'm like, I want you to feel like normalized. Like these are the things that could happen. You could be feeling these emotions, but also preparing them with a lot of tools at helping them feel really like prepared. So to answer your question, overwhelm, exhaustion, but there's so many things that we can do. And a big part and piece of that is nutrition. So nourishing foods is not going to sort all the problems, but it's definitely going to, I feel like it's going to soothe and sway you and swaddle you in a sense where you're feeling so good and grounded that yes, you're tired. Yes, everything is still new and you're figuring it out, but you feel grounded, if that makes sense.
Because it's tangible. It's like, it's such a sensory experience. And it is something that people lean to for comfort just as it is, right? Comfort foods and stuff. But I like that because, you know, we've talked about overwhelm in other episodes too, as it relates to motherhood specifically. And I think I've never actually thought of food as being a grounding mechanism,
Yeah.
but that's interesting. I like, tell us more.
Yes. Yes. I mean, absolutely. Food can be such a healing element. I think it's really interesting too. A lot of my clients have shared this many months later after I worked with them, that postpartum was such a eye-opening experience in terms of learning about nourishment for their life, not even just for postpartum. It was such a healing journey, whether they struggle with eating disorders in the past or whatever it was. Postpartum was such a healing experience when they learned this aspect of how food can really affect the body. And I have my own personal story to that, and I won't go into it deeply, but I've had health issues in the past, and food has been such a powerful grounding part of that healing. So I love to do is easy digestible meals. So really just putting the body in a calm state, not things that are hard to process, hard to digest, things that will make the body feel anxious, because foods have that power, make the body feel like it's just digesting these hard foods all night long, and your belly's up and going and rolling. Your body feels that. And so I'm really just focusing on easy digestible meals so that the body reserves a lot of energy for resting, for healing. I'm looking at warm foods. So who doesn't feel like on a really cold, maybe it's not here in California, but like on a really cold day, we love going to Norway every year. And so we'll be out in the freezing cold, and then we'll come back into our home and we'll have a warm bowl of soup. And immediately your body, it's almost like that, you get that feeling of just like you just feel that endorphin rush, and your body is just like, thank you. So after birth, could you imagine having something really warm and made with love? It's going to just help your body be like, oh, I'm good, I'm safe. Takes you out of that fight or flight mode, takes you out of that adrenaline rush, and just helps you go, okay, I'm here. And as you're slurping that soup, it's helping you be mindful, because it takes a little while versus just eating something big and quick and crunchy. And I will share, no matter what I'm chatting about with foods, you do what's best for you too. Like I say with mamas, I'm not shaming any foods or anything that you need to do in the moment and need to eat. But easy digestible meals, warm meals can help the body just really recover. And who doesn't feel a meal that's made with love is so healing in itself. So those are just like basics, but yeah, I feel like that's so powerful for moms.
And I hear thing too about it being like comforting just mentally, but also from like birth perspective, it's 100% true what you said about the placenta and like how biologically you are depleted, whether that's also with a bunch of hormones, like you really do it, the food becomes medicine as well as just plain old, a grounding, comforting thing. I know that there's a bunch of studies that have to do with depression and the blues, and a lot of it has to do with that huge hormone dump right after your placenta goes. And it's like people who are more conscious of that, who maybe are struggling with mental health issues, they put them on food programs like at the hospital to be like, hey, you're probably going to experience this huge crash, so let's give you these foods that help boost those like hormones back up. And it's just crazy that, I don't know, they have that in medicine too. Like they focus on food a lot too.
Although, I mean, looking at your Instagram feed, like hospital food versus some of these recipes. I mean, can you give us a few examples just for everyone kind of envisioning what we're talking about here? What are like some examples of the stuff that you make?
So simple. Really simple. Even though they might look complex in my reels, I get overwhelmed myself. I live in the overwhelm realm. So I think, how can I make things very simple for moms? How can I make things very simple for maybe friends coming over to meal prep prenatally, and you're making all these meals? So the spices, the things that I use are very like, you use them for one recipe, you can use them for 5 other recipes. So you're using the similar things, and it doesn't feel like you have to buy 60 ingredients for one recipe. But things that I make can look like, especially, we can just focus on the first 48 hours and then kind of like share a little bit more about the other weeks. But specifically for the first 48 hours, it's very easy digestible soups. I make a lot of soups and stews. If there is a partner, I'll make a lot of stews that have elements that maybe they might want to eat as well for them.
That's
But
nice.
yeah, but for mama, especially the soups are made so that it can be a sipping broth if there's no real like cravings or any appetite, because some mamas experience that after birth where they're like, I don't want to eat anything. And I'm like, well, just at least have a nice little broth and it will just support your system. I share that a lot of the foods that I make are animal protein based, like they're veggie based, but they also have animal protein in there. That's not your jam. Like, definitely you do you. But I really like doing a nice bone broth. And so I like the collagen aspect. I like the minerals in there. A lot of the broths I make they're made with mineral water. So they have more minerals in there because I'm thinking mineral, electrolytes for mamas. Easy digestible food, meaning that they're stewed down. So the veggies aren't raw. I'm looking for veggies that are cooked down, ideally organic. So what I make is, to not talk so much in generals, is I love to make a green spring soup, and it's just like parsnips and a bunch of veggies in there, and I make it with a bone broth. And so that's how I start, is making very minimal ingredients, very minimal food. And then I might do like a beef broth or a beef stew. Again, mamas don't have to eat the meat. They can just sip on the broth and kind of just go, kind of like check in with their body and see where they're at with that. So that's the first 40 hours. It's just very soups and stews and very minimal foods. And then gradually every week I add in a little bit more. So that can be congee, that can be oatmeal, that can be just a lot of, again, veggies that are stewed down, cooked down. I love to make a turmeric ginger soup. So I guess I could say, or you could say, a lot of soups for the first couple of weeks. And
Okay.
that's mainly because postpartum is a very cold time. It's a very cold time for the body. It's a season the body is needing these blood building foods. It needs the warmth. It needs the circulation. So I do that and use a lot of warm soups for that, to bring in that element.
And I perused your whole website. There's a bunch of recipes just there.
Yes, and I have an ebook. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have an ebook
Yeah.
in March coming out, and that's going to be my cookbook, which shares all of my recipes. So I can just get them in one place, and then people can have them and just use them as they need.
I think that's
Yeah.
so good. Even if the listeners aren't in California or San Diego, they can just pop to your website and be like, oh, soups, who knew? Like, this is a huge
Yes.
regenerative force and that overwhelm. And what's really cool about food too is it's something that someone else can do easily. You know, like if your friend or partner is like, I want to support you, it's something you can do without
Right.
all up in their space. You can just drop this like nice warm soup out. I never would have thought of that. In fact, my friend just had a baby and I think I'm going to cook one of your soups and go bring it to her house.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I definitely don't do just soups. There's so much more. Like, I will make a veggie scramble. I'll make like a turkey veggie sweet potato bake, and it'll be like an egg bake, and moms can chop that up and have that for breakfast. And there's so much more that I make as I work with a client, as I know what their body needs. So I really am adapting to that. I share that, like, even if you don't have a doula, just really checking in with your girlfriends and seeing what worked with them in their postpartum, and just maybe grabbing one of their recipes and just kind of bring that into your postpartum. That's really what I'm doing over the years, just hearing feedback from my clients, what really worked for their body, and then making recipes and making these things for mamas. And
Have you had any clients that have had you as like for maybe their second or third, and then they can compare that, nourishment with like their first where they didn't have that? I'm just curious as to like, I mean, it all seems maybe this is like a selfish question, because I'm like, I wonder how my postpartum would be different had I done this. And this is just side note, coming from a place where I struggle with nourishment still. And I think it's also just part of being a mom, right? Like there's all these like jokes and reels about how like moms eating like their kids like leftover chicken nuggets or whatever. And it's like funny, but at the same time, nourishment is so important. So I'm working on that, but I'm wondering if it's because like it set the stage for me that I never started doing this in postpartum.
yeah, definitely Sorry, you have to remind me the little bit of the first part of your
Oh,
question because I
that's
was
okay.
agreeing with the chicken tenders, and I was like, that does happen.
Yeah, yeah. Have you had any clients that like didn't have you for their first birth, but then did have
Mm,
you for their second and
yes,
third, and like have they communicated the difference?
absolutely. So yes, I feel like it's like my own little, like I'm always learning and I'm kind of taking my own research, doing my own research at home from all of the results of working with different families. And I'm like, I have my own studies in a sense.
Yeah.
Um, but absolutely, I hear feedback all the time about how even if I worked with a client a few years ago, I'm always adapting and changing my own practice and my own beliefs, and I'm forever learning. I don't know everything. So I feel like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I could have incorporated XYZ, and I hear that from those clients back then. And now that I'm working with them in this year, actually, there's a few clients I'm working this year with. During our prenatals, we chatted about, did you feel like this would have been more beneficial? We did this. But I do hear absolutely that nourishment was beneficial for them, and not only helpful during postpartum, but also, again, back to teaching them, helping them learn these tools for their whole motherhood journey and learning how to really take care of their body and nourish their body through that whole time. But I do hear a lot of feedback in terms of it helping their nervous system, again, just helping them feel calm, supported, nurtured. And then also hear a lot about how it helped with their milk supply, because I've worked with some mamas that worked with me. It's like a gap year. Like they worked with me for one baby, then they didn't have support for the second baby. Maybe they had family or friends come in, and then they worked with me for their third baby. So hearing their feedback of like what helped and what could have been they wish that they had. The biggest thing is lactation support. And
Mm,
I mean, everybody has a different journey, and I won't say that certain foods are gonna give you this abundant milk supply at all. But there are little things that we can do to kind of, when I hear my clients' feedback of what their lactation journey is and where their body is, there's so much that we can do in terms of teas and soups, and it might help. It might help.
Well, one of the things when I was perusing your website, because I know you were saying that the number one thing that moms are probably not expecting is the sheer amount of exhaustion, overwhelm, and the food is like one of the big ways that you help. But the other thing I kept seeing that I've never heard about, or like I still didn't quite get, was the belly binding. I don't know if you want to share that, because it was super cool. I was like looking at your reels and I was like, oh, I never even thought to do that. Like, how did you get into that? Or I just want to talk about that because I thought that was another cool tool that you knew about that I've never heard about.
Yeah, so I mean, again, the nourishment, the belly binding, they all go hand in hand. So it's not like all of a sudden I'm belly binding and it's like, how is this healing? How is this supportive? They're all a part of it. So you
Mm.
have a calm belly, you have a centered body, your body's warm, not in a cold state. Even though it's postpartum, it is a cold state. We have a warming, healing your system, and then we do a belly womb massage and a belly bind. It's just like the body feels so good. But what belly binding is it can work as a structural support for the midsection, the hip area, especially the hip area, because that area usually tends to get overlooked. And a lot of new mamas are learning how to use a belly bind. Maybe it's a Velcro belly bind, and they're just popping it on in the midsection, putting a lot of pressure down on the hips and the pelvic floor. So actually, when I say belly
mm,
binding, it's a lot of it's hip binding. So it's a lot of support in the hip area and the belly, obviously. But belly binding, there's different methods out there. A lot of countries have their own specific method that is very traditional. But I like the Bengkung belly binding, and that's a Malaysian belly binding. It's basically a 17-yard or maybe a little more, depending on if you tailor fit it to a mama. But 17 yards of cotton, and use the fabric to basically just do twists all the way up from the hips, all the way up underneath the breast. And it is super supportive, comfy. It really is, can support you in the way that you move so that you're not putting pressure down your pelvic floor, because it's just, again, a nice compression. Some mamas say it helps with digestion because they feel like they have that support, so they're not moving incorrectly or sitting for a long time in weird positions. It really encourages you to side lie a lot. So then the body just feels better because you're laying down. It might not be the
mhm.
belly bind, but it the belly bind can help. But more than anything, it's to support the hip area, especially when your body still has the hormone prolactin in your system after birth. You have that. There's so much different information out there, but they say 3 months, 6 weeks, but after birth, it's still in your system. It was there
Is
in
that
your
the one that
pregnancy.
makes you all stretchy?
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
and it's meant for birth. It's meant to
Right.
birth your baby, but it's still in your system for that up to 6 weeks, could be a little bit longer.
Mm.
And so, because our body's so loose, because a lot of mamas say that they feel that jello-like movement, the bind can be really supportive, and just so that you have that there, so you're not moving incorrectly and you're, putting yourself in weird positions in the middle of the night. So I love the belly binder for those reasons. And then the biggest thing I feel like the bind is for me at least, working with mamas, is self-love and connection to their body, because it's a
Hmm.
small little ritual every morning that mamas can do. It takes maybe 2 to 3 minutes. I would never do a practice that's not sustainable for mamas. So I teach them really how to use these tools so that they feel like manageable and they can use them. But the belly bind is a way to, like, when I'm putting on these binds and teaching mamas how to put them on, I'm like, touch your body, feel your curves, feel every bit of your body, and really honor it as you're binding. A lot of mamas say many months later, like, that was really a sacred time that they would have never dedicated to themselves,
Yeah.
because you just get it. You wake up, or not even wake up, you're already awake maybe, and you're just going right into the next thing and the next thing. But
Yeah.
the bind is like, wait, hold up, like, I need to do some care for myself. So there's a lot of benefits to it. But for me, as I get older, more and more I see and feel deep in my heart, it's connection to the body. And so I'm like, that's great. It was a great support system for you. But like, what's it doing on the inside is most
Yeah.
important. Mm-hmm.
When does belly binding start? Does it start right after? Is this a first 48-hour thing too?
So it can be really beneficial right after birth, but it really depends on your birth. So what your birth was like, always check in with your dream team, the ones that supported your birth team.
Hmm.
Make sure that it's appropriate for you. It can be really, really helpful the first 48 hours with uterus contractions. So a lot of mamas feel the compress. They can put a heat pad over it. So I like to use a lot of weighted heat pads. Putting that over can be really helpful, and just with uterus contractions. And then also it can be, again, the support system. So when you're moving, you're not moving incorrectly. Some mamas that have surgical births, they experience a lot of hospitals giving them the plastic belly binders, the Velcro ones.
Hmm.
But a lot of them are focused, when you're putting them on, they're not tailor fit to your body. So they go right into the midsection, and then we're pushing pressure down the pelvic floor, which kind of looks like a ketchup bottle, and we're pushing down on the incision. So I like to share that if we're using those Velcro belly binders, we use them correctly, but that the bang hung way or any of the other methods out there that use the cotton binders might be a little more supportive, because you can get deep on the hips and really just focusing on binding the whole body and not putting pressure on the incision. So I think it's super helpful the first 48 hours and more.
Where can you buy these? The one that you're talking, you said, is it Ben Kung?
Yeah, Bangkok belly binder. Etsy, you can go on Etsy. You can go on so many different websites online, and more of like the crafty websites. And even on Pinterest, you can learn how to make it yourself. It's
Hmm.
super simple. Go to the fabric store and you can just cut the cloth and just use it. You don't even have to get a fancy one. But the ones that I make, my mother-in-law hand sews. She's a beautiful
Oh,
seamstress here in San Diego, and she hand makes them with so much love. She's like the ultimate. My mom and her mom, or my husband's mom, is just like they're the sweetest moms ever. So anything they touch is gold, and she hand makes these, and they're sewn so they're heirloom pieces. So they're not just like cut and they shred for years. These are sewn so that they are, you can keep them. Some mamas will plant dye them later and pass them on to a girlfriend. Some mamas
oh, I
will,
love that.
yeah, they'll attach like a piece of their baby's fabric from like their baby's first blanket, and they'll sew that on there, and they'll give it to their baby when their baby needs to be belly binded with their baby, and just keep it going
Oh,
on and on. So there's a
wow.
lot of things.
So much ritual. Okay, so for if somebody's not in San Diego
Yeah.
area and they want to get the one from your mother-in-law, how
Yeah.
do they do that?
Yeah. So on my website, there's my shop, and on my shop
Okay.
page, you'll see my ebooks, and you'll also see my handmade belly binds, and those are on there. always and forever. And I just love sending those to people all over the place. So you can purchase them on there.
Well, and your Instagram is really cool because you have the how-to videos of like how to put them on. Because for me, I really was like, whoa, like it was really helpful to even just if you didn't know how to do it, it like kind of demystified it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, I like things that I use they have to be sustainable. So I like using items that are very like, okay, it might seem complex. Let me show you how to use it in a very easy way. And I just did that today. I posted about how to make your own heat pack. And like literally you can just use like three items. If you even have the three items, if not, if you have one item, rice, beans, you put it in a sock, you tie it, and you have a heat pad. It doesn't have to be all these fancy things. So yes, on my Instagram, I show you a lot of DIYs because I'm that kind of person. I'm like, can I just use what I have? Like, why do we need to buy all of things?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you don't have time to check the description, it's meganlimondoula.com. And then you can follow her at Megan Limon Doula. So it's MEGANLIMONDOULA.
Yes.
Gotta check the spell. I'm a Megan, so everyone
Yeah.
different ways of spelling things.
I definitely deep dived. Like I was super into your sitz baths too. Like what ingredients? Because we have a sitz bath, which it's like, first of all, sitz baths are weird in general. They're like water that goes in your perineum, like your vaginal area after birth. That's what I think of it in the hospital.
Yes.
And in the hospital, it's just like, it's not a sexy thing. It's not warm and cozy. So I was like thinking, I was like going through your page. I was like, is there a way I can incorporate something really easy to like maybe just put like lavender oil or I don't know. So you have lots of cool like tips and tricks on your page that I just think, like you said, they're not only practical, but they have that like just warming element that actually promotes healing.
Yes.
Is there anything that they can't get on your shop that like moms can like buy ahead of time while they're pregnant that they can grab on Amazon? Like what are like some like your top 5 things that you feel like moms should stock?
Absolutely. I have an Amazon storefront, so that is there. But I always encourage mamas to shop local. Obviously, if you have the items, you can ask friends that already have those items. There's so many ways that you can just like Facebook groups, you can just collect the stuff. You don't have to buy it on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah, just source, but which is so much more fun. But yeah, I do have an Amazon storefront. I will say my top 5 things is I recently did a post about this is peri bottle, absolutely a peri bottle, a heat pad. So if it's electric, it's rice. If you have a microwave, that's great. If it's a rice pack, having really comfortable sheets, really breathable material in those sheets. So the linen sheets, not being afraid if they get dirty, just get something that you absolutely love because you're going to be in bed quite a bit. Having a foot bath. So some basin doesn't even have to be, again, that you have to purchase something. You can just use what you have and just make it a really great basin for herbal foot baths. And then the 5th thing is having really good meals. So that can look like a meal delivery service. That can look like Friends, a meal train. It can look like some easy frozen meals that you made previously. So food is invaluable. So I guess that kind of encompasses my belief of like the healing aspect, the nourishing, the cocooning. So like having those healing things, those warm things all around you. And I think you'll be pretty good. Everything else you're going to find. It's going to come to you. You'll be okay. You don't need like the perfect baby wrap or whatever. It will come.
That's amazing. I'm excited to have my next baby just so I can do all this stuff. I want a belly bind right now, but I can't. So Chelsea, you want to ask your favorite last question so we can wrap up here?
Yeah. Before we close, we just always ask, is there any like nuggets of wisdom or things that like you wish, you could express to all the listeners out there? Like, hey, if I had a microphone and I could just tell the world these things, it could be relating to, being a doula in the first 48 hours. It could be related to anything, but just anything you want to get out there before we close. I just want to know because you got nuggets of wisdom in there.
I would say that healing is possible. So whether this is your first baby, your 4th baby, if you've had miscarriages before, wherever you're at, healing is possible. I also think it's important to realize that like postpartum can be a very healing, joyful, we can even romanticize postpartum. If with just a little bit of preparing before birth. So preparing as much as we put a focus on birth, and I think you both feel the exact same way, as much as we focus so much on birth, what if we prepare for our postpartum, that same light, that same warmth and excitement? So earlier we were chatting about like the peri bottles and the herbal teas and all that. And I think sometimes on my Instagram, I get messages of like all these things are so beautiful, but like, is this reality? And I'm like, I put a lot out there for different individuals, but it can be reality. Like we can romanticize, we can put the extra little florals in a bottle and make ourselves a little peri bottle. We can do those things. It's just with a little preparation. So then maybe we can't do it in the moment, but we freeze those little, herbal sitz bath remedies in ice cube form. And then we can pop it in our peri bottle after we do give birth. Just a little preparation can allow us to have these little special times with ourselves, because we're definitely, most mamas are preparing for their babies and they're getting the nursery ready and all this stuff, but like we do that for ourselves. So I think that's really important for me to share that message is healing is possible. You can nourish, you can cocoon and do all the healing elements for yourself with a little preparation, and that we deserve better. So I think that that's huge. And I really hope not only to educate mamas, but like really support doulas in doing this work, that maternal care is really important in teaching mamas that they do matter and they do deserve it. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you.
And check out Megan's website, meganlimondoula.com. Follow her on social. All of these things that she's been talking about, nourishment, cocooning, healing. She's got an amazing postpartum guide up on her website, and that recipe book coming out soon, which I saw you're offering a little pre-sale on it too. So check it out. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm so grateful that you're on. I feel like it's just so wonderful when you see people doing what they really should be doing. Like, you are such a unique and awesome person. And I'm so glad you're sharing like your vibes with everyone, because it's just like, man, this is what more people need. And I'm just so happy you're on our show. And I'm grateful that I got to have this time with you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Raising Mama podcast. Your presence means a lot, and we hope you found our discussion insightful.
To become a part of our community, follow us on Instagram at Raising Mama Podcast. Explore resources on the Raising Mama Village located at www.raisingmama.com.
You're never alone on this motherhood journey. We're here to support you every step of the way.